Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet features great racing now through Florida Derby weekend at the end of March. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Sunday morning. I am Seth Merrow, and we will take our usual Sunday look at some of the stakes action from yesterday. A little bit later on, Anthony Provst will be out with League Lockdown, doing a little coverage of NFL action this weekend. So all of that coming up over the next hour. Stay tuned. I'll give you a little preview on this promos that are coming up later this week here. But first, I will do a little review and preview of promo action, because yesterday, King of the Hill contest, nobody hit it. There was $1,000 up for grabs. So mark next Saturday on your calendar. King of the Hill will return with $1,100 up for grabs. And again, it's a fun, doable contest. First couple of races, you have to your horse has to finish in the top 4. Then a couple of races, top 3, then the top 2. And the last race, you have to have the winner. Nobody made it to the last race yesterday. But again, it was not a crazy sequence. It started in the third race. The third race, we'll see in a minute, the Jerome wound up with only 4 horses after scratches. So it was a free square. Then you had a $4 horse, a $9 horse, an $8 horse, a $6 horse. Now, again, there were some people alive going into the next to last race, but you wound up with a $14 horse that knocked out. There was a little group of people that were alive that knocked them out. But then the last race was definitely havable at $6. So, again, if you could have grabbed that $14 horse, you also could have grabbed $1,000 yesterday. So, again, come on down here to the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue in Albany, and join us next Saturday when $1,100 up for grabs, King of the Hill contest. Also, next Friday, the Bounty Bet returns. That reset at the last running of the Bounty Bet. There was a force out the last week of the year for that, so that is reset to $500. But on Friday, it will be the late pick 5 at Aqueduct. All you have to do to get your shot at the Bounty is play the late pick 5 with your Capital OTB bet account, and you can get a shot at that extra $500. The next Saturday, Fan Appreciation Day, Uncle Sam Lanes. If you're a patron out in that direction, we'd love to have you stop by next Saturday afternoon. And Fan Appreciation Day gives us our chance to say thank you to you. There's always food and PPs, contests, always a lot of fun. So again, that's next Saturday at Uncle Sam Lanes in Troy. All right. Let's take a look at some of that stakes action from yesterday, as noted. And as noted, it kicked off with the Jerome. And when we talked about it yesterday, I had Bob Ehalt on. And I said then, how do they put up $150,000? Beginning of the year, age-restricted stakes race, and you only get 5 entered. And the horse I actually liked scratched, but we were kind of anticipating that. Bob actually had seen the scratches before he came on and said Mulata was out. Butch Reed horse, who had just won a stake down at Parks on December 30th. So that it was a quick turnaround for sure, and looked like that one might not wind up. And so Mulata scratches, and it scratches down to a field of 4. Now, that said, the first 2, the top 2, look to have an edge on this bunch and have some potential maybe to go forward and be okay. I went with My World, and I was a little surprised in a field of 4. My World was the third choice. My World, Brad Cox runner, coming out of a win in the Nashua. Balboa was the favorite for Brittany Russell, who was coming out of a third in the Remsen, but had won a little stake down at Laurel just before that. Again, they looked like 2. They turned into the stretch, kind of duking it out. Balboa, the favorite, is the 4 horse. And here, as I say, I had the 3, My World, and I felt like kind of running in place. But then, now we're getting a little momentum, and now I felt like, yeah, we're going to go by. We did. Chart margin winds up to be a couple of lengths. So it was a nice win for My World. Again, in a short field, so we don't know too much, and I haven't seen the numbers yet. I checked a little bit earlier. I'll check again when we go to commercial, see if we can get some numbers on that. It wasn't a super fast time, a mile in 138.96. But My World does wind up with 10 Derby points. The possibilities coming out of this on January 31st, the $200,000 Withers at a mile and an eighth. I would say maybe more likely. Yesterday's race was at a mile, so I would say they might, go for the timing. The Grade 3 Gotham at a mile is February 28th. So I could certainly see Brad Cox and company maybe waiting for that because they skipped the Remsen after the Nashua in anticipation of a little more timing to get to this race, the Jerome yesterday. So as I say, I could see him maybe waiting on the Gotham at the end of February. But the Withers is sitting out there. Balboa, as I say, Brittany Russell runner. We'll see. She won the next stake. Was interviewed after the race, and they asked a little bit about Balboa too. And she kind of felt that maybe the dual, the Paladin Remsen, Balboa was right up there kind of dueling. And so Brittany Russell felt like maybe that took a little more out of them than we thought. So let's get a little spacing now and get them back to what we think is top form. Balboa had started the career in the barn of Bob Baffert out in Southern California. I guess didn't quite live up to that program. So SF Racing, Starlight, Madiket and Company shipped east to Brittany Russell, where the horse seems to have progressed nicely, as I say, since moving out of Southern California. The win in the James Lewis at Laurel, the third in the Remsen, now a second in the Jerome. So Balboa, again, a little more productive on the East Coast than he was on the West, but no better than second yesterday, as My World does get it done for Brad Cox. And Balboa, surprisingly, for, essentially a 2-year-old, just turned 3-year-old, but had come into it with 6 starts. In this day and age, that's a little bit unusual. Had debuted end of July at Del Mar, 4 starts out in Southern California, a couple of starts on the East Coast. And so start number 7 for a just turned 3-year-old. More in line with 21st Century Racing, My World, the winner for Brad Cox, Bob LaPenta, Madiket Racing. That one came in with only 3 starts. Debuted up at Saratoga in August in a maiden special. Finished behind Big Dom and Dr. Kapoor there, running 4th, and then broke the maiden Belmont at Aqueduct in October and early November. Again, the win in the Nashua. So now 3 for 4 overall for My World. And again, I want to see the number coming out of that and whatnot. As they say, it wasn't a super fast race or anything, but I thought both of the top 2 finishers in there came into the race with a little talent, and I think the 1-2 finish doesn't really tarnish that particularly. So we'll keep our eyes on those newly turned 3-year-olds on the New York. Brittany Russell was actually going to stay on the New York Trail. And interesting, I'll mention it when we look at this next race, but she has had some interesting thoughts. She said maybe, but had some interesting thoughts otherwise as well. And My World, again, I would think that a February race seems very possible to Gotham. All right, a little bit later on, the 3-year-old girls going the mile in the Bisanda, $150,000 up for grabs. Got a little more of a field in here, but not much. 6 entered, 1 scratch, so they scratched down to 5 in the Bisanda. But this one definitely did have a good-looking winner. Dazzling Dame for Brittany Russell had come in with 3 wins in 4 starts. A couple of those wins were stakes wins. She is the number 5 here, getting it done. Chart margin is going to wind up to be 11.5 lengths. Now, I don't know whether this was a super strong bunch. I thought Believable was interesting. The number 6 horse, that one can do no better than a well-beaten 3rd for Pletcher and Rapoli. Splitting those 2 was 2 Bits, who was out for Amelia Green. But again, the also-rans were also-rans. It was Dazzling Dame getting it done convincingly. Went a little bit faster than the Jerome. got 20 points towards the Kentucky Oaks. Still early. These horses still have to stretch out and see, what we're going to get. But as I say, came in with a win in the sorority at Monmouth this summer. Tried the Pocahontas down at Churchill, ran fourth there, but then came to Delaware in a little stakes race, won yesterday. So again, 4 wins in 5 starts now, 3 of those stakes races, and that was pretty convincing. And as they say, a little bit faster than the drum, a little bit faster than the boys. And again, Brittany Russell after this race was a little bit interesting, talking about both Balboa and Dazzling Day. Said Balboa, again, may have the Remsen may have been a little tougher than they anticipated, and so give them a little time. Dazzling Day. Right after the race, I saw Brittany Russell interviewed, and they said, stay on the New York Trail? She said maybe. But then in the Dave Grenig follow-up article in the Racing Form, she mentioned she might wait with both of these for the Virginia Derby and the Virginia Oaks. And if you remember, they moved on the calendar last year. Colonial, a little short meet for that Virginia Derby day down there. That's March 14th down at Colonial. So again, we might see, and I think those are 50-point, well, the Derby one, 50-point race. So we'll see where they go with both of those. But of the boys and the girls of the 2 stakes races, the impressive horse was certainly Dazzling Dame yesterday, who, again, won nicely. And as I say, I haven't seen any numbers, but I'll keep my eyes open and I'll double-check when I looked earlier before I left my place, but I haven't looked since I've gotten here. So I'll check some of the usual sources during the commercial break, see if we can come up with some numbers there. Another impressive looking victory yesterday, the Ginger Brew. Nice little stake on the card at Gulfstream on the turf. Spirit Doll scratched out. She was coming in off a stakes win in October. Safi Joseph runner. That one, that was a notable stake. And when that one scratched, all the money went to Sister Troyenne. Brian Lynch runner. Brian Lynch, of course, going so well. Mario Gutierrez on board. Went off at 30 cents to the dollar, the number 6 horse here. Lagina gave this one a little bit of a tussle, the number 7 horse, but I don't know whether you were ever really sweating that the chart margin is going to wind up to be 1 3/4 as the favorite does get it done. Again, pretty convincingly in there. The second place horse was the ranked outsider at 23-1. So it gave a little bit of value to the exacta with a $2.60 horse on top. You got $25 and change for the exacta if you did like that long shot in the second spot. But Sister Troyenne, 3-year-old filly, and the Ginger Brew was 3-year-old fillies on the turf. She had come in with a 3-race win streak, including a win in the Wait a While down at Gulfstream in the previous start. So now a couple of stakes wins in 4 career wins in 5 starts. So it looks like Brian Lynch, nice little 3-year-old turf filly runner to aim for those stakes during the year. Like the 3-year-old boys, the subdivision I like quite a bit. There are some nice spots for 3-year-old fillies on the turf as well. I will note the time, 133.42. Solid time. And again, I'll see if I can find a number there. I would think that would be a legitimate number, but it was certainly a legitimate performance, 133 and change for Sister Troyenne, Brian Lynch, Mario Gutierrez, as noted in the Ginger Brew down at Gulfstream. Also at Gulfstream yesterday, kicking off the Jerome kicks it off in New York. We'll have a look at the first step on the 3-year-old trail down at Oaklawn in a few minutes in the Smarty Jones. But down at Gulfstream, the Mucho Macho Man, $175,000 up for grabs with the 3-year-olds going a mile. I liked Epic Summer. That one went off as the 5-2 second choice and could do no better than running 5th. So my top pick, a little bit of a dud there, coming out of a debut win for George Weaver. A little bit disappointing in the second start. But betting public had it right. I had the horse right underneath number 1 Commandment. Brad Cox, Irad Ortiz, went off at 1-2 and lives up to it, winning by almost 7 lengths. Then it was 3 long shots underneath, 23-1. Roger that Dana, Thunder Chuck at 21-1, and Max Capacity at 43-1, rounding out the superfecta. So a little bit of a surprise in the underneath spots, but no surprise as far as the betting public with Commandment. Came in with a couple of starts under the belt, debuted in October at Keeneland, ran 4th there, but being by into mischief, trained by Brad Cox, you would think win sooner than later. Went off in that debut effort at Keeneland as the 5-2 favorite. Followed it up over at Churchill. First start with 6 furlongs, goes over to Churchill, stretches to 7 in a maiden special, goes off at 7-5 and won that very easily. And then followed up yesterday as the favorite, getting it done when stretching to a mile. So I would think that would be a 3-year-old to keep our eyes on for Brad Cox. A little bit of breeding. Certainly first 3 starts of the career have looked pretty good, stretching out successfully every time. So we'll see what Commandment has in store going forward as well. All right, we'll take a break. And when we come back, we'll shift our attention, as noted, down to Oaklawn. They had 3 nice stakes yesterday, highlighted by the Smarty Jones. Also, we'll go back to a week from today, which wound up to be the delayed opening day at Santa Anita. The weather woes out there continue. But last weekend, going to take a look at a couple of those stakes. They had 6 on the card, but a couple of them were notable, the Malibu and the Pink Eye. So we'll take a look at those as well. All of that when Racing Across America continues. Stay tuned.
The championship season is on at Gulfstream Park. There's great horse racing action Thursday through Sunday. Come out and enjoy the world's best horses, trainers, and jockeys as they compete over the Hallandale Beach Oval all season long. Take your experience up a notch and join us in 10 Palms Restaurant with unbeatable track views, outstanding dining, and convenient wagering options. For reservations, event schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Think horse racing is too complicated? Think again.
And they're off.
Every pro was a newbie once. Meet DRF Newbie, the mobile tool loaded with daily racing form data and the power of DRF AI. Get the insights you need fast so you can play smarter and feel more confident. DRF Newbie, horse racing made simple. Try it free today. Visit newbie.drf.com.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Welcome back. Did find some buyers. Didn't find buyers for New York, but did find some buyers for Gulfstream Park. Commandment winds up with a 90 in the Macho Man, and Sister Troyan in the Ginger Brew, an 80. I thought that was a little late given the final time and a nice looking performance. But again, early in the 3-year-old season, certainly with that record, should be worth watching. So again, still looking on the New York side of things, but there were a couple of numbers for Gulfstream. Guys in the control room also alerted me that Santa Anita has put out that they've canceled again today. Again, the weather issue out there. Somebody posted on Twitter, they probably canceled more in the past couple of seasons than they maybe did for 80 previous years total, which actually wouldn't surprise me if that was true. And they have also noted they put in some protocols within the past few seasons that affect the situation a little bit more than it probably did, going back a few years. All of that said, the weather has been unusual out there as far as the amount of rain, certainly. All right, weather nice though down at Oaklawn. And the last week it was in the 70s. Talked to Nancy Holthus yesterday, laughing about that because they did the right thing. They changed the season. So today's going to be the last day for their little short holiday meet. They'll take like 3 weeks off, I think, come back at the end of January with Oaklawn, a 4-day-a-week schedule. But January is always a little funky down there as far as weather. But this year, last week it was mid-70s down at Oaklawn. But as I say, typically January can be very dicey. So I think they made probably a pretty smart move. But they were racing this weekend. And again, the weather down there has actually been pretty mild recently. 3 stakes highlighted by the Smarty Jones. We'll kick things off taking a look at the Renaissance. The Renaissance, Nancy and I talked about this one yesterday, and we were, kind of in agreement that the horse to beat in here was going to be Obliteration for Steve Asmussen. Just looking, betting public at 3-5 was on board. No surprise. Obliteration, this horse is interesting. Was coming out of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint and ran an okay 4th. Was in a couple of turf sprint stakes before that and ran okay 2nds. But you go back to the beginning of the career, had good dirt form. And Nancy said she had talked to Steve Asmussen, and he said, if the Breeders' Cup had a 2-year-old dirt sprint, I would have gone in that. I think he's better on dirt. So Obliteration gets back to the dirt yesterday and kind of validates that thought. Obliteration here is going to be the number 6 and really just pull away from this bunch. 27-1 Swung. The number 3 will run second. And the 9-5 second choice, Dirty Rich, runs third. Dirty Rich was actually the even money morning line favorite, but betting public was on Obliteration and made that one the favorite by post time. Again, at $3.40. It was Steve Asmussen, Joel Rosario on board down at Oaklawn. Had a little bit of trouble in the race. The chart notes a stumble, but it wasn't enough to make any difference in there as Obliteration kind of lives up to his name. But again, a victory over 7 lengths. And, if you're watching the game at all, over the past few years, Steve Asmussen has had an embarrassment of riches in the sprint division. And this little 3-year-old gives him a nice little 3-year-old sprinter. I said yesterday, we'll see. It's still early in the career. They could possibly stretch this one out. But what we've seen so far, this is a bona fide sprinter. And I think, given this outfit and how well they do with sprinters, I would expect this one to stay short. And the siren call of the Derby is always out there. But I would think they would pick their spots. And I noted yesterday, the big days at tracks around the country, with the big 3-year-old races, there are nice 3-year-old sprint races, the Woody Stevens and those kind of races on big days around the country, I think will be the place where Obliteration winds up and probably successfully in an awful lot of them, I would think, as well. Also, yesterday, at Oaklawn, the Commodore, I said when we were talking to Nancy Holt this yesterday, fun stake. It's a restricted stake, restricted to runners that haven't won stakes races yet. And it had a field that certainly looked to have some bona fide talent, just haven't won stakes so far. I thought Concrete Glory stood out for Safi Joseph. I've liked this horse throughout the career. Just a very, very good sprinter for Safi. Stakes quality, although, again, hadn't put that win on the resume. I thought yesterday might be the day, shipping up from Palm Meadows to Oaklawn. That said, betting public agreed with me. Lukewarm, but it was a large field. It was a field of 9. And Concrete Glory, the number 5, went off as the 5-2 favorite and winds up last in here. Bourbon Bash at 10-1. Steve Asmussen, Joel Rosario. They combined to win both of the stakes. Bourbon Bash gets it done. This is kind of an interesting runner. Had been in the barn of Wayne Lucas. When last seen, ran in the Maryland Sprint, middle of May, Preakness weekend. Hadn't run since then. Moves into the barn of Asmussen. We noted yesterday, Steve Asmussen, we showed the race with Nancy, won the first running of the Coach on Friday, a race named after the nickname for D. Wayne Lucas, and mentioned how the Asmussen family had for decades been friendly with Wayne Lucas. And so it was nice that Steve Asmussen won the first running of the coach, but then gets it done with the coach's horse or a horse trained by the coach for the vast majority of the career. Takes that one over and gets it done. Off the layoff, I get it. I wasn't super attracted off the layoff to Bourbon Bash. It was a horse that not shocking to win, 10-1 kind of indicates that. But, Steve Asmussen had the horse ready off the layoff. There was a work in the middle of December that may have touted this one. So $22 for Bourbon Bash in the Commodore. Banjo Chris second as the second choice at 7-2. Thought that counts, or is it though that counts? No, it is thought that counts. It's the thought that counts. I'm just looking at the breeding there. Interesting name. But that one runs third at 9-2. And as I say, at 5-2, Concrete Glory tosses in a dub. Dueled early. And, the fractions were legit, but this is a legitimate sprint front end kind of runner. So that was not a good performance from Concrete Glory in there. But it was a very good performance for Bourbon Bash on the comeback. Going to be interesting to see. Wouldn't surprise me to see them pick their spots along the Stakes Trail. The calendar pops up down at Oaklawn, but being a Steve Asmussen runner, I would think seeing this one up at Saratoga is not out of the question. Just turned 6 years old, 6-year-old gelding. So Bourbon Bash, yes, a nice performance yesterday in the Commodore. And I do have also numbers for the Oaklawn races. Bourbon Bash with a 95 buyer, solid buyer there. How does that stack up lifetime for Bourbon Bash? Lifetime best. His lifetime best prior was a 92. So Bourbon Bash firing a 95 on the comeback, and Obliteration with a 90. Curious how that stacks up with his best effort as well. A 94. He had a 91. Winning the Sanford up here at Saratoga with a 91 in July. So he gets right in that ballpark again. All right, the highlight yesterday down at Oaklawn was the Smarty Jones. $250,000 up for grabs on what has become a rich, set of stepping stones, potentially the Kentucky Derby, certainly to the Arkansas Derby. I think these folks would hope. Speaking of hope, another one where my top pick didn't do much. I rolled the dice a little bit with Oscar's Hope. 8-1 on the morning line, but coming out of a win at Delta Downs that we showed yesterday, I thought Oscar's Hope was okay. Got the 8-1. Didn't get the run I was hoping for. Oscar's Hope, the number 6, will run last. Horse I had down a little bit in my mix, though. Number 7, Strategic Risk 4, Mark Cassie, who's just going great guns down there at Oaklawn. He puts another stake on the resume for his good Oaklawn season with Strategic Risk. Javier Castellano was on board. This is a Florida bred who was coming out of that Florida Stallion Series down there, ran third in the Affirm back in the middle of October, and won the Rich in Reality last time and won it pretty easily. So stepping back out against Open Company, Strategic Risk. Win number 3, start number 6. Did it pretty easily, as you saw, at a $7 mutual. Silent Tactic second, Baytown Dreamer third. Universe was the favorite for Kenny McPeak, coming out of a couple of seconds in the Street Sense and the Kentucky Jockey Club. I always say those fall 2-year-old races at Churchill, to me, tend to be very productive. Not so much for Universe, as Universe goes off as the 2-1 favorite and winds up 7th in the field of 8. Again, my top pick, Oscar's Hope, 8th. So a couple of horses that I thought were eligible, not so much so. Rancho Santa Fe was also a player, went off at 5-2. I'm kind of disappointed as well, running 5th. But no disappointment from Strategic Risk. Nice little 3-year-old in the barn now of Mark Cassie to keep our eyes on, again, on their 3-year-old trail down there. All right, and before we go to our next break, just want to take a look at a couple of the races, again, from last Sunday at Santa Anita. We'll kick things off in the Malibu. The last grade 1 for the 3-year-olds. Wound up with a field of 7 in here. There were 3 scratches. Notables where Barnes got scratched and Cornucopian got scratched as well. A couple of the Baffert runners that were sure to take some action. But Bob Baffert still gets it done. It's going to be number 10, goal-oriented, getting it done under Joel Rosario, who was out at Santa Anita last weekend. Goal-oriented, went off as the favorite and got it done. Midland Money, another Baffert runner, runs second, and Speedy Wilson runs third. So again, Baffert, exacta. Chart margin here is going to wind up to be a length for goal-oriented. That was win number 3 and start number 7. A horse that had been a player on the 3-year-old scene earlier this year. Couple of starts, couple of wins early on in the career. And off of that, they tried the Preakness, ran 4th behind Journalism, Goscar, and Sandman. Then they tried the Haskell, 3rd, but less than a length away from Journalism and Goscar, with a 101 buyer in the Haskell, 3rd in the Pennsylvania Derby. Tried the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, was off the board there, but comes back returning to age-restricted company in the Malibu and scores. I would not say with Sovereignty floating out there. I always hold my Eclipse votes until those last races, the last big stakes races are run. Didn't really change up my my opinion on the 3-year-old side of thing. Again, Sovereignty just kind of had a hammerlock on that the whole time. But nice way to wind up the season for a goal-oriented horse that did maybe change things up for me with a nice graded victory to wind up the year. A horse that throughout the year has kind of shown the potential to be a monster is Nisos. And so I did want to show the Pinkai. Potentially on his way to the Saudi Cup after this. Top 2, in fact. They're both Baffert runners. We're going to see Nisos get it done. Comes out of a win in the Grade 1 Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Flavian Prat was on board that day. He was on board again last Sunday, and Nisos gets it done. Has to work, however. Nevada Beach, the number 3 horse, you can see on the outside, is in front. But Nisos will not let that one get it done. And it's tough for horses that when they get, down there on the rail like that. But he works his way back under Flavian Prat, gets the victory by a head. Nevada Beach gave him all he could ask for. Again, Baffert running 1-2. And as I say, coming out of this, it looks like they will head potentially to the Saudi $20 million and, off a good performance like that. Nisos with a gutsy victory. Wanted to show those two. And again, there were 6 nice stakes last weekend, but those were 2 that kind of jumped out at me, worth watching with the potential of horses going forward. We'll see how goal-oriented moves into the handicap division. Last year, the late season for the 3-year-olds seemed to produce a solid handicap division, which I think it was. That said, and relating it to the Eclipse, the male Eclipse was tough because I don't think the handicap division was kind of fun and there was talent there, but nobody really, there wasn't a whole lot of cream rising to the top. The cream was kind of duking it out throughout the season. So that male Eclipse Award, a little bit tough. And as I say, for me, that Nisos victory on Sunday may have played into that. But be interesting watching both those runners going forward and see how the handicap division shapes out as the early portion of the year plays into the Pegasus and the Saudi Cup and the Dubai World Cup and Santa Anita Handicap, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All right, we'll take it one more break. Again, a little bit later on, we'll have Anthony Provst and League Lockdown. But when I come back, I'm just going to hit on some of the stats, the year-end stats of note before we wrap it up. So stay tuned.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Think horse racing is too complicated? Think again.
And they're off.
Every pro was a newbie once. Meet DRF Newbie, the mobile tool loaded with daily racing form data and the power of DRF AI. Get the insights you need fast so you can play smarter and feel more confident. DRF Newbie, horse racing made simple. Try it free today. Visit newbie.drf.com.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back. I don't think I mentioned the buyer for Strategic Risk and his win in the Smarty Jones, 87. Not spectacular, legit, not spectacular, but an 87 for, again, the first step on the Arkansas 3-year-old trail yesterday in the Smarty Jones. As I say, I pulled up the year-end stats for trainers and jockeys. I just thought kind of notable and fun to look at that. On the trainer side of things, as far as wins, at the end of the day, on December 31st, it was Jamie Ness with the most wins in the country, 353. Pretty much these days seems based down at Parks, although that Parks base lets you, move around, come to New York, go out to Maryland and whatnot. But 1,400 starts, 353 wins. Jamie Ness at the top of the list, again, with 1,415 starts. 2,275 starts. Steve Asmussen second with 331 wins, so 353 to 331. Brad Cox sitting third, 277. Anthony Ferrier, who kind of Mid-Atlantic, Midwest, Charlestown, Mahoney, Laurel. He was fourth with the number of wins, 242. Mark Cassie, fifth, 237. Safi Joseph, 219. Mike Maker, 206. Chad Brown, 203. Linda Rice, 189. Brittany Russell, 175. So some familiar names in there. One, as I say, we might not be familiar with Anthony Ferrier, who, as I say, kind of that Mid-Atlantic, Midwest kind of thing. Mid-East, maybe you would call it, with Mahoney, Charlestown, and whatnot. But Jamie Ness on top, Steve Asmussen, Brad Cox, 1, 2, 3. As far as earnings, Brad Cox with $30 million plus, Steve Asmussen, 24, almost $25 million, and Chad Brown with $24.4 million. Mark Cassie, 23.2. Todd Pletcher, 19.1. Bill Mott, 17.1, again, million. Safi Joseph, 17 million. Mike Maker, 16.7. Brendan Walsh, 15.6. Bob Baffert, 14.3. But Brad Cox on top. Pretty wide margin as far as money won. 30 million versus almost 25 for Steve Asmussen. So there's your money won and your number of wins for the trainers. Jockeys was interesting, and it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out as far as Eclipse Awards and whatnot. Early-ish December, I think the news that with a win, Irad Ortiz had crossed the $40 million mark. No jockey had done that before, so that was notable. But Flavien Prat was right there. And they both end up breaking the $40 million mark and are separated by less than $1,700. You can see the totals there. And it came right down to the last day with Flavien Prat getting some wins in New York and closed the gap. But he winds up, as I say, less than $1,700 away with them both breaking that $40 million mark. You can see there their number of wins. Irad with a little less than 400 more mounts and had a 40-plus margin win total with the 351 versus 310. But again, it was just remarkable. The money won which again was a record that no jockey had reached before, that $40 million mark. And so both of these guys right there and just a hair's width apart as far as the final totals. And also, part of the info that gets sent out to Eclipse voters, they break it down into graded stakes wins. And that was interesting for these two as well. As you can see, overall graded wins for IROD, 36 with 9 grade 1s. Flavien Prat, 46 grade wins, 13 grade 1s, 15 grade 2s, 18 grade 3s. So it was on that front, graded stakes victories, nice year for Flavien Prat. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Eclipse voters parse this all out. Speaking of which, the Eclipse finalists will be announced at noontime today. So by the end of the day, by lunchtime today, we'll know who they all are and how the top 3 break out. Do remember that when you look at ballots, some folks have posted ballots out on Twitter. The top vote is the only thing that counts as far as the Eclipse. The second place, and it's a weighted kind of vote. I think it's 10, 5, and 1 points. But the second and third place are just to decide who the finalists are. But as far as deciding who the actual Eclipse goes to, it's only the top vote. But we will know who the finalists are, again, in about an hour and a half or so. We'll have the entire list. But in just a few minutes, you will have some information as far as the NFL, what went on last night, a little preview of the NFL action today. Our man Anthony Provst will pop in this seat right after the break with League Lockdown. I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America, but again, back in an hour and a half or so, OTB Live for Sunday afternoon. But again, stay tuned. NFL preview and review coming up right after this.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
The championship season is on at Gulfstream Park with great horse racing action Thursday through Sunday. Come out and enjoy the world's best horses, trainers, and jockeys as they compete over the Hallandale Beach Oval all season long. Take your experience up a notch and join us in 10 Palms Restaurant with unbeatable track views, outstanding dining, and convenient wagering options. For reservations, event schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to League Lockdown, brought to you by Capital OTB. I'm your host, Anthony Provst, and I'm going to be reviewing and previewing all the NFL action we got coming up today. We got to look at last night, because for some reason, the NFL has put the last 3 weeks of the season on Saturdays as well, which is exactly why I haven't been sitting in this seat for the past few weeks. But we had to start with the 4 o'clock spot with the Panthers and the Bucks, with the Bucks triumphing over the Panthers, which they take that final playoff spot. So we got that going on. And then Seahawks and 49ers. I don't want to say it was a domination game, but it wasn't a well-executed game. But the Seahawks and Mike Macdonald, they finish with the win, 13-3. And now Mike Macdonald, being in his second year as head coach with Seattle, finished with the best record in the league. Look at that. The man left Baltimore 2 years ago, and now Baltimore misses him. But they get that first-round bye out of the NFC, so we got that going for him. But let's look at the final the final week 18 of the NFL season. I'm sad to see it happen. I know a lot of other people are too. This is a sad time. But starting at 1 o'clock, we got the Colts and the Texans, who cornerback Sauce Gardner was ruled out with calf issues, as well as tight end Will Mallory, who was ruled out on Friday with lung issues. So we'll see how that one goes. Also coming up at 1 o'clock, we got the Browns and the Bengals, the Saints and the Falcons, the Packers and the Vikings, the Titans and the Jags, and the Cowboys and the Giants. And with that 1 o'clock spot, I know a few games that are going to end up going a bunch of different which ways. Let's see. So if we look at it, the Titans, the Jags, the Bills, the Chargers, and there's one other game that has a lot of playoff implications with getting the first round seed and getting a different playoff spot in the AFC, and it's gonna be it's gonna be a lot to pay attention to today. But at 4 o'clock, we got the Cardinals and the Rams, the Chiefs and the Raiders, the Commanders and the Eagles, the Dolphins and the Patriots, the Lions and the Bears, the Chargers and the Broncos, and then the Jets and the Bills. Now, little tidbit here of interesting information with this Jets and Bills game. Ever since they started recording interceptions in the league in 1933, at least one season there's been a team that hasn't gone without an interception. But the Jets, and I might be wrong about this, the Jets, if they don't throw one interception today, will be the first team since 1933 to do it. So that's some cool information to have. But don't quote me. I could be wrong on that one. But then for Sunday Night Football, the biggest game of the day, the biggest game of the season that has more playoff implications, season implications, literally everything, is the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I'll say that in 1 second once we get through the injuries that we got for these teams today, starting specifically with the Raiders. QB Geno Smith was ruled out on Friday, and he will not be playing in the season finale against Kansas City. Rams, running back Amarion Hampton was also ruled out on Friday, as well as for Pittsburgh. After 3.5 weeks, TJ Watt will be returning to play against the Ravens. Still no DK Metcalf after getting that last 2-game suspension from a couple weeks ago. So we'll have to see if TJ Watt and the defense can stop that Baltimore offense after what the Baltimore offense did to Green Bay just 7 or 8 days ago and what Derrick Henry did. But the game of the weekend, the game of the season, the game of the year, it is go big or go home. Winner take all with this one. And after a rocky start to the season, starting 1-5 for Baltimore and having the comeback story of the century, even with a few hiccups, I have to say it's all on the line tonight in the Steel City. Say Baltimore is 1 game away. They're both 1 game away from taking the division and getting that final playoff spot in the AFC. Everything is up for grabs. Everything is on the line tonight. But on the flip side of that, you got Pittsburgh, who wants to keep their winning season streak alive, but finally recapture the AFC North after 5 long years. And Lamar, for the first time in 2 whole months, has been a participant in practice all week. So it's about to be a shootout. But however, again, the Steelers welcome back that defensive ace in the hole, TJ Watt. And he did suffer a collapsed lung, had the surgery a few weeks ago, and he's back to business. The age-old rivalry continues. Destinies will be made, and somebody is going home tonight. And when I tell you, like I said, that this game has the most playoff implications, because if Baltimore wins it, they'll be the first team in over a decade from the entire league to win the division 3 straight seasons, because they've done it the last 2 years. So if they win tonight, that's division title number 3. It's a hat trick, and it's everything. But if Pittsburgh wins, Baltimore's out. It's all or nothing. And again, if Baltimore wins, Pittsburgh See you later. But if you want to watch all that, if you want to be as excited as I am, because I know most teams by week 18 have their playoff spots wrapped up, but like me, certain teams gotta fight at the end, gotta be that, try and put that final nail in the coffin. But if you want to watch all of it, please come down here to 7-Eleven Central Avenue in Albany, our food vendor and partner, Black Bear. Get some amazing food. I say it every week. You guys know this. The food at Black Bear is top tier. The quesadillas, the burgers, the chicken tenders, all of it. It can't be beat. It is top tier. And also, watch all the horse racing action. Horse racing, football, food. What could you ask more for on a Sunday? You can't beat it. You can't go wrong with it. But with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for watching another amazing episode of League Lockdown. I have been your host, Anthony Provst, and don't forget to stay locked in.
We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet features great racing now through Florida Derby weekend at the end of March.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off-Track Betting.
Get ready to rock third. Far outside, that's dangerous driver. Neural Network is at the rail. Triumphant Road is covered up looking for racetrack is Morelos.